Why do I have to verify? There we go.
There we go.
All right. We've had some audio issues that popped up on this one. 2 live streams ago, I had audio issues. I had to delete the live stream.
Oh, goodness.
And then the one that I did with Jim was fine. And this one was doing the same thing. And it has to do with this microphone, this, I don't know what the deal is. So, Paul, you and I, can we stick on afterwards and see if we can't problem solve that one? Because I can't hear it on my end. So
yeah, no, it's so odd. It's so odd.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we got Paul. Paul, it's been a long time. It has been since like September, October. I think it was October, the three of us.
October, November. It was October or November. We did the one on football players, I think is what the show
that was. Oh, man, that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun. And we do have, we have Jim. He's out working right now, which it's just the way it goes. So Paul and I are going to do one here, and then we'll try and get the 3 amigos back on there again.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Terrorize the YouTube internets.
Yeah.
So what's up with you, man?
Well, just keeping up. I got a haircut, but then I've been growing this out, so I've got a beard right now. There's enough on here that you can grab on and pull me by the head with it.
Oh, boy.
But, continuing to recover from the car accident. I've been focusing on getting back into the gym, spending more time lifting weights.
Yeah.
When it comes to online work, so I've still been writing for primerepeat.com where I do firearm and watch works.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've started writing for a second watch website, The Escapement Room.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been working on the YouTube channel. So I've been doing a lot of videos as of late, using my workshop, doing some out in the field shooting videos, watch things, firearm related things. And it's just been fun to really work on that. It's been a lot of fun.
Cool.
So, can't complain there.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's just doing a lot of work, a lot of stuff with just personal improvement for me, and I've been saying that for a while. But I just want people to understand, like it's not an easy thing for anybody who's gone through a major shift in their life. It's a lot of work. So, and it's it's a lot of work. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, you mean, we won't go into detail, but you've been through the ringer, and I think that getting back into doing live streams and doing videos is a good way to get that normalcy back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And your Arnie review was quite good. I enjoyed that.
You like that one? Did you like the helicopter special effect at the end? It occurred to me towards the end of the editing, it's like, oh, I can go online and I have a sound effects subscription, so I went picked up. That was. Can you name the helicopter?
Oh gosh.
What helicopter that was used for that? Okay, it's a military helicopter, so we'll just start narrowing this down.
Okay, was it a Black Hawk?
No, good guess, but no.
Was it a Huey?
No, that's a really good guess.
Okay, are we adding?
I don't know if I should say it's a really good guess if it's wrong. It's the Apache. It was the Apache. Yeah.
It's funny, here in Utah, we actually have a whole lot of Apache squadrons. So occasionally, if you hear helicopters and you look up, you'll see Apaches. Which is like, okay, should I be worried about this? Like, flying low enough, you can see their payload. So that's a lot of missiles on there.
Oh man, they're a gunship. I mean, they've got so much equipment on there. You mentioned like when you see an Apache, things might be a little bit tenuous. We have here in the southern Bitterroot Valley, in Ravalli County, we have the Rocky Mountain Lab, and it's a level 4 infectious disease lab with the CDC. And so they are the ones that do the work with Ebola. They do the work with all of the major illnesses or viruses that pop up around the world. And so one of the board members, the school district I used to work at when I was superintendent there, she was one of the safety officers at Rocky Mountain Labs. I said, look, I won't say her name, when the monkeys are dying off pretty quick, or if the monkeys get out, you let me know, okay? Because I'm out of here. And there's only 3 ways out of the valley. You can go south, you can go north, and you can go west. And that's it. You're surrounded by mountains, So I guess you could sound of music the whole thing and try to climb over the mountains, but
not this time of the year. You're not.
No, not this time. Well, it's going to take you a long time to do something like that. But,
absolutely.
Yeah. And then you had the Rocky Mountain Lab, and then you have, what was that movie where they were going to vaporize the town that had some disease? What was that?
It Project X? Is that the monkey virus movie with?
Was it with Morgan Freeman or something?
Well, the issue is that there's the one with Morgan Freeman, and is it the kid from Back to the Future, or it's the kid from Ferris Bueller? It's either there were 2 movies with infectious monkeys that came out within like a year or 2 of each other.
Yeah.
Right. It's like,
and they were gonna nuke the town. And of course, the ending scene, of course, is the F-15s or the B-1B, the Lancer. What do they call that one? It's the
Bone.
The bone, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Bone.
Yep.
They bring the bone in to drop the nuke and vaporize the town and to get rid of the disease. But of course, they find the solution or whatever. All the world is saved at the end. But anyway, you say that and it reminded me of that. It's like, oh, it's kind of weird because we have like right here, and I guess this lab was developed when Rocky Mountain Fever. During the 19th century when they were moving west and all that, and Rocky Mountain Fever was a problem. That lab was developed because of, obviously, it's in the Rocky Mountains. So anyway, that's the location. It's pretty cool. It's tied to the CDC, and they do some really cool antiviral and vaccine type work. Whether you're for it or against it,
it's there.
They're doing the research there. So. And they contributed to a lot of the research that went into the vaccines that were around the world at that time for COVID. So, because they were working on COVID too. And then we have GSK, they do all kinds of stuff. Glaxo, something Klein, Smith Klein, I think it is. They have a lab here. So like, here we are, Western Montana, Southern Bitterroot, and we've got two major medical research, pharmaceutical production facility type places. It's like, you just wouldn't think of that in this little...
The West is surprising.
Yes.
It throws a lot of people off, especially if they're not from the U.S. They don't realize where so many weird places are in places that you wouldn't think.
Yeah. Does Salt Lake City have anything like that?
Oh, it was Salt Lake City. So this is kind of nerdy. Salt Lake City, if I remember correctly, it is the third place that if DC were hit by weapons, where they would move the like a lot of the parts of the government, or like everything. So it's Denver is number 2, and then it's Salt Lake City due to them being fairly central, but also being relatively close to a bunch of air bases and being close to a lot of like facilities out here. Here in Salt Lake, not in Salt Lake itself, but within like a 50-mile radius, there's like a massive weapons storehouse between here and the Nevada border heading west. That's massive, to the point that when I drove through there with my girlfriend a couple of months back, we saw a thing where in the 60s, they accidentally killed something like 8,000 sheep when they unintentionally deployed chemical weapons in western Utah. Right? Oops.
Whoops.
The nozzle was pointing the wrong way in the airplane, and we killed this entire guy's
wrong button. Yeah, no kidding.
It's interesting with that kind of stuff because it kind of plays into we're both outdoorsmen and we both put some effort into like the survivalist stuff. Yeah. This is not a great place to be if you're worried about that, because this is like one of the big targets to get hit by nuclear weapons if there were to be a nuclear exchange.
Yeah. And northern Montana and North Dakota are just lined with ICBMs. So yeah, and you drive out in the middle of nowhere. There's like this fenced-in area. There's signs all over the place. It's like, oh, I wonder what that is.
Yeah. Totally not a nuclear missile site.
Wouldn't know what that is. That must be something really strange, But anyway, so Paul. I'm going to turn off a light here. I'm going to step away for just a second, and I'll be right back. Let's see if I can do this without... Oh, yeah, I can do it this way. Here we go.
Hey, look at that. We're happy to be back here doing our live stream. If anyone wants to drop a comment, I've got a second screen up here to look at comments, and we're always happy to have any sort of input from the viewers. So thank you for tuning in.
All right. That's a little better.
Hey, look at that.
I got a white shirt. I came right from church, went out with some guys, friends of mine. I may have broken the speed limit on the way home. But we're here. So today's topic, Paul, is the quartz crisis of 2025. Now, is there a quartz crisis in 2025?
I mean, if you want to be picky, you could say smartwatches. Those are powered by batteries, but they're not powered by quartz. They're just powered by batteries.
I think it's the scope or the size of it. Like how big is the quartz crisis? And I will say, if you just look at my house, there's a mini quartz crisis going on. Okay, so if we start there, I could easily define that I have been buying more quartz watches than mechanical watches. Although I am wearing, I want to see what you're wearing. This is the San Martin Pilot Watch, which I love this watch because it's so simple. Yeah. It's full lume dial. It has I think this is a 21K movement, and it might be a Chinese movement as well. But just super legible, easy to read. I mean, it's just, I love it. I'm kind of going back to simple, which is part of the quartz crisis at the Johnson household. So But
Well,
then all the
we both like
Casios.
legible and simple,
Yeah.
right? Even for our digital watches, we like them to be ones that don't have so many useless functions, ones we're actually going to use.
Right. All right. What do you got on?
So I actually don't have
What do you
anything on
score?
because I pulled off the watch to show it
Whoa,
here.
whoa! This is a
So
family show.
it's naked. I just pulled this off. This is one I sent you photos of, but I know that we had our technical issues with that.
Yes.
So I am wearing a
yes.
vintage Tag Heuer 1500 diver. It looks a little green there because it is also a loomed dial. This watch is probably about 35 years old. I bought it as my last watch that I purchased back in December, and I really like it. It's 9 millimeters thin, so wafer thin here, 37 millimeter diameter, so pretty small watch. But what I like about it is that it is quartz. It's very accurate. I've actually been kind of testing it, and aside from like today setting it for daylight savings, this was only gaining like 1 second a month for a watch that's 35 years old, like an old quartz watch. Simple thing, rotating bezel. It's got the date on there. I got lucky that the eBay vendor who I bought this from had it listed improperly. They listed it as the wrong model, and they priced it as such. So I got it for like a couple $100 less than what I probably should have. But I like it. It's a Bond watch too. I'm a Bond nerd, and this is very similar to the one that Timothy Dalton wore in The Living Daylights. But for me, as someone who is relatively active, again, getting back into weightlifting, quartz watches that I can bang around and not damage, I prefer. As someone who still goes shooting once a week now, especially now that my back's better, I'm out shooting in the desert again. Quartz watch is great. I don't have to worry about recoil damaging a movement. So that's what I'm wearing today, and I've been wearing it a lot.
So where is your stance on mechanical movement watches?
I mean, they're still fun. They're still good. Like, I still own 2. I only own 5 watches. For our viewers out here, I only own 5 watches, and Tim currently has one of them.
Yeah. I got it right here. I'm gonna send it back. There it is.
Hey, there's the Arnie.
The review was out there yesterday.
Yeah. But truthfully, mechanical watches are fun. They're really enjoyable, and I'm glad that I have the 2 mechanical watches that I have, which are the 2 Omegas that I had on throughout our live streams that we did over the spring, summer, and fall.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just that as time goes on, we're both practical people, and quartz watches are so low maintenance, so low effort. I have my G-Shock over here, which is atomic timekeeping, just a simple 5610.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to change it for daylight savings today because it's programmed with a perpetual calendar and it knows when those dates are.
Yeah.
Right?
No kidding.
There's so much convenience with quartz. And I think that as a lot of watch enthusiasts, we go into, mechanical watches cost more money. They're more intricate. They've got more soul. And then people write off quartz. Now, obviously, you and I never did that because we always enjoyed having quartz for being outside, doing outdoors things, having more functions than just telling the time. But now we have that renewed love for quartz because it's easy, and we would rather not devote that mental time to our wristwatches, right?
There's some truth to that. And, I've had a number of mechanical watches now for a handful of years, and maintenance, at some point, you got to start thinking about like which ones do I actually send in to have maintained, which ones am I just going to hang on to until like maybe things just because they're not worth it. I mean, the cost to get them maintained is probably the cost of the watch. But I have a couple of watches that I would definitely send in to get tuned up and lubricated and timed again, so or calibrated. But it's one of those things like you're right, it's a different thing when you're wearing a mechanical watch versus a quartz watch. One of the things for me wearing a quartz watch is I know how accurate it is. Like there's nothing about it that really is significantly inaccurate, and I don't have to wear it if I don't wear it for a few days and I come back and wear it again, it's still really close to being where it was, a few seconds off.
If even that, if even that, right?
Right. So you get to that point of like, yeah, it is kind of annoying to have to set the time each time, wind it. And for me, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes down to that because I like the hacking movement. I get a second hand on 12. I watch and it's like, why not? Like if you're going to set the time, why not just set it as accurate as possible? Because then you can see how far off it is at the end of the day. So you get that whole piece as well. So I'm kind of the nerd that way when it comes to setting the time. You don't have to do that with
absolutely. Quartz. Yeah, you do the same thing with quartz, right? With this Tag Heuer, I will say that the second hand doesn't hit every indice, and I do care about that on a new watch, but on a watch that's older than I am, I don't care too much, right?
Yeah,
it's allowed to be a little off, right?
Was that an ageist joke directed towards me?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just checking in because I'm so old. Sometimes I can't pick up on the jokes that are ageist
No,
towards
no.
me.
For me, when it comes to quartz watches, I think it's fascinating because, like, this is a perspective thing for me.
Yeah.
My father, maybe he'll watch this. So, hey, pops, if you're watching this, thanks for tuning in. He's 65, and 2 years ago for Christmas, I bought him an Orient Kamasu dive watch.
Yep.
For Christmas. That was
Nice
his
watch.
first. A good watch, yeah.
That's a really nice watch.
And
I
that
love
was
that,
his.
yeah.
That was his first mechanical watch.
Yeah.
My dad's 65. When he got into watches, or I say got into watches, when he was wearing watches back in the 70s, that was when quartz was, the first quartz crisis, right? That's when it started. And for my father, he'd only ever owned battery-powered watches up until a year and a half ago when I got him his first mechanical watch, right? So it's interesting to look at it in that perspective that this quartz watch is 35 years old, but this quartz watch is still 20 years after quartz became a relatively common or popular thing. And I think that we're starting to see more of a resurgence for quartz in like the enthusiast circles.
Yeah.
Not that this is meant to be like, hey, let's get on our soapbox and talk about it, but when you and I talk about why we appreciate quartz as both practical people, but also you can still be an enthusiast like quartz watches. Hosting watch meetups out here in Utah, I'm finding plenty of people who are in the same boat that, yes, we love our mechanical watches, but the quartz watches are the ones that we find ourselves wearing quite often because it is low maintenance. It's grab and go, all the things you always hear about, but it's the truth, right?
Yeah. And if you want to go, old school, dress it up, hit that vibe of wearing a mechanical watch. Going to church, I typically don't wear quartz. I wear a mechanical, pick up a mechanical watch, and go that route because it's just in my mind, it's just one of those like more traditional things, and so it just kind of goes with the mindset. Of it. So, and you said I'm a practical guy. I don't know if a practical guy that has like 70 to 80 watches, but I am, and I've said this so often. I apologize to all the viewers out there that I'm going to update my website, but I have so many good mechanical watches that I don't want to get rid of, and I know I do. I'm gonna have to purge about 20 of them, 20 to 30 probably. So it's just one of those things where I just gotta have the heart to do it. But when I do that, I'm still going back. Like I'm finding myself in a Casio surge almost, or a digital watch surge. So what Casio watches, how many Casio watches do you have? Digital display Casio, or digital displays? Just the one?
I have 5 watches, and this is one of them.
Okay.
I am sticking to my so for our viewers, I'm trying to avoid buying any watches this year, and not due to wanting to save money and not do. It's just a personal challenge, and I'll tell you what, it has made me appreciate this G-Shock so much. Part of it too is I was treating the Arnie that Tim currently has as like a G-Shock. I'd wear it to the gym, I'd wear it shooting, I'd wear it when I'm showering, wear it when I'm sleeping because it's got the backlight. This G-Shock, not having the Arnie, and this being the only light I own, or the only watch I own with the backlight now, I have had so much reappreciation for this watch. I've had this G-Shock a little over a year. Yeah. This is one that I don't foresee ever getting rid of because it does everything I need, plus some things that I don't need that are nice to have. Yeah. I don't use the alarms, but I'm glad it's got it, right? Like that's a handy thing to have. Yeah. So that's my only digital watch right now is that one. And I guess the Arnie, but it ain't here right now.
And I'm with you on that too. We have the same model, the 5610U. This is the updated one. It's the Tough Solar atomic timekeeping.
Yep.
Super, like like you said this morning,
it's easy.
This watch was running on the right time automatically. So
yep, yeah, it's so
just
convenient.
Like how and the size it doesn't stay too tall on the wrist. For most, the largest wristed people out there, as Jim Kincaid would say, large wristers. Whatever the term is he used. It may be a little bit tight to have a 5600 model. But he came up with another term. I got to plug Jim because he's missing today. So Jim, I hope you're watching. But he came up with a term I love. And I put a comment on his video when he said this, but it's the watch crotch. So in his latest video, he calls it the watch crotch. And it's the distance between the two straps is the crotch. And it makes total sense. And so I put a comment on there. So those of you that would go, I forgot what I put in the comment, but I thought it was kind of funny. Usually I entertain myself. But, some of these watches like this, I think the Casios in particular, they do such a good job of form fitting. It's also the digital display. It's the grab and go piece. Like there's so many things about a watch like this that is so much easier than a watch like this, a bracelet.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This bracelet, one of the downsides to this particular style is that you have to use the pin to move back and forth to adjust. Now they have the adjustable on the fly clasps, which are great, that's all I buy now. If I buy a bracelet, it has to have that. But if it doesn't have that, that's annoying. Then you've got the setting the time. Then you've got the inaccuracy. If the watch hasn't been tuned up, you got a watch that over a day or two could be off by a minute, depending on how far off it is.
And especially in the world we live in now with all of the digital technology we have, I have an iPad here that's showing me the stream so I can look at comments. This thing has a pretty bad magnetic field around it.
Yeah.
What happens to mechanical watches when they're exposed to magnetism? They get magnetized, and now they're even less accurate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Hello, Jardiker.
SGW 100.
What's the SGW 100?
I'm looking it up right now.
Is that the outdoor one? I think that's an outdoor watch.
That is the digital triple sensor, the digital only triple sensor. This
SGW.
is one. Don't you have one of these? I feel like you have one of these.
I think is it the blue one that I had because I gave it to my oldest son.
It is. This one is the one that has is black and silver and has the blue display.
And it has the compass and the thermometer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what I
it's
thought
the
I
digital
recognized.
triple sensor. Yeah, and that it's funny. I was talking to my girlfriend about this morning. We went to Costco first thing this morning to grab some stuff. As it goes, and you go to Costco, you end up with way more than what you expected to get. And we were talking about watches because I hosted a watch meetup yesterday, and people were like, "How are you content with the ones you've got?" It took me a long time to figure out, what I like, but it got me thinking: if I wanted to buy something, what would it be? And I have a long list of things that are possibilities, but it's not a list of things I'm planning on buying or want to buy. It's ones that might hit the criteria. And when I think about, what's a watch I would wear that I know I would actually wear, not just one that I would buy and would sit in the watch box, all of the Casio triple sensors are ones that I think about. Because you really like the triple sensor, right? Yeah. And that's one that I know I'd use it. It has functions I'd use. I'd wear it in the field. I'd wear it shooting. I'd wear it hiking. It would come along for adventures. Yep. It's quartz, so I don't have to monkey with it, right? And that's the thing is that I have 2 mechanical watches, and I can't think of any more mechanical watches I want. All of the watches I want at this point and again, this is not like I'm saved. Like I don't want to sound like I've got all the money in the world, but it's not a monetary thing of, I'm waiting and saving for it. I just don't want anything right now.
Yeah.
But I think about the CWC divers. What are those? Those are quartz. For the most part, the Casio triple sensor, quartz. If I want to go a little bit more expensive, I've been looking at the Breitling Aerospaces, which are quartz. They're anti-digi quartz. So I'm very much enjoying the simplicity of quartz in regards to the wearing element. And then, of course, it's easier in the technological environment we live in with magnetic fields on computers and screens and this and that, jostles, dings, dents, getting in and out of the car, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to throw this up here. So I've got 3 triple sensor watches. Do I have more? I don't have the Rangeman anymore. What else do I have? But I got these 3. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, of all these, as far as reading the time, I love the analog. Okay, I'm not using the middle finger on purpose. Okay, I got the analog. I love this for telling the time. This is lightning fast. Mm-hmm. I do like the GBDH 2000 because of the MIP display. I was just wearing this yesterday, or was it Friday or Saturday, and it's the display is a little bit fuzzy compared to the other ones.
Well, I'll tell you, I know that you and I
solar cell overlay on this.
We're not the biggest fan of negative displays, but the negative display on that second watch pops so much better on screen. When you hit the right angle, it's like perfect. I can read it without a whole lot. Yeah. With a lot of the regular display Casios, they're a little bit like obviously the G-Shock's pretty good, but some of them can be a little bit fiddly. Yeah. And I think Casio is realizing that the negative displays look cool, and as we know, cool sells things. Yeah. But also, they're working on making them look better, so they're more legible at a quick look there. I'm looking at the comments here. We have from, and I'm going to butcher your name, I'm sorry, Abigail Singh. What is the perfect watch according to us? Yeah. This is one that you and I spoke about on the cell phone yesterday. And I'm gonna say what the perfect watch would be for me. This is not a thing that exists as far as I know, but this is one that Tim and I have discussed. Give us a quartz movement that is solar powered and is powered by the Bulova Accutron, like the precisionist movement. It's a smooth secondhand sweep, very accurate movement. So that with some solar power. And then if we want to have some cherries on top of the ice cream sundae, make that atomic timekeeping, right? If we could get all three of those in a sports watch or a dive watch or something, that would be our perfect watch for us.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist right now as far as I've seen. But basically, if we wanted to watch that, okay, I'm going to get rid of everything else and have it, for me, it would be something that's solar and probably atomic timekeeping. So one of the Casios, I know Citizen has solar atomic timekeeping watches, probably one of those. I could get rid of everything else and be content with that.
I think the perfect watch for me, and I quick ran and got a couple of them. So I have my cases. I had to grab those real quick. But the GD350, this is the positive display. I'm going to get the negative display out because you're 100% right. And I'll show you the negative display of this model compared to the MIP, which is incredibly contrasty. I like this model so much because of the vibrate alert. Now, the job I have now, I'm no longer doing the lawn business stuff. I'm back in the professional world. I got to dress up with a monkey suit and all that stuff. But when it comes to doing trainings with teachers, and usually they're about 50 minutes in length, I'll set this to 45 minutes so I have some Q&A time, but it's a vibrate alert. So with that in mind, like it's one of my favorite watches to wear. Now the GBDH 2000 also has the vibrate alert. A lot of the smartwatches do. So that's good. So I like the vibrate alert. So when it comes to, what are the pieces that make up a perfect watch for me? In the Quartz world, it's going to have the vibrate alert. It's going to have the automatic light. Okay, so when I tip my wrist, it's going to turn on and off. It's going to have a high contrast display. It's going to have easy numbers to read, that whole thing. And there's not a watch that really, and also kind of lower to the wrist. So some of these two guys, they're so chunky. The GBDH 2000 and the GD350 are so chunky that they lose out on that as well. So I don't know. Those are some of the things I would look for. I want a really good light. I do like the automatic light. So when you have like the 5610U or the smartwatches that are out there, when you roll your wrist, the GD350 does this as well. Has the auto light. The Big Sky, the W736 also has the auto light with the vibrate alert, and it's like $35.
Oh yeah, even that, you can probably get that for less than that these days.
Yeah, I mean that is such a good deal for a watch. So if anybody's looking for like some of what I just talked about, the W736 might be one of the best ones out there. It's also one of the chunkiest. And I use this measurement. It's actually a ratio between the diameter of the watch across and then the height off the wrist. And so the chunkiness factor takes those into account. And so you'll have a watch like this, but because it's so wide, it doesn't look very chunky. But when you have a watch like the GBDH 2000, okay, it looks chunky because the diameter of the case is just so much more stout. And the difference in height is not that much.
Yeah.
So some of that has to do with like perfect watch is the proportion. I want a watch that has the diameter of the case divided by the height off the wrist. That's in that 3.5 or higher range, 3.3 or up. And I do the calculations now. Every time I see a watch, I'm looking for the diameter. I'm looking for the height off the wrist. And if it's below 3, that's kind of a big strike for me because it's such a chunky watch.
Tell you, you'd love this thing because this thing, it wears like an F91, but it's a 200-meter water-resistant dive watch with a rotating bezel.
Okay, so 9 millimeters. Let's do the math. What's the diameter of that case?
37.
So so it's over 4.
Yeah.
So
I will say the annoying thing is they try to do the very 90s way of having your lug width be about half of what the case diameter is. 19 millimeter lugs on this watch. Hey, but you can find straps for it. It's not the worst. And it came with a bracelet, but the bracelet felt like it came out of a Cracker Jack box.
Yeah. So to answer the question, I think the GD350, the Mudman, I like it except the display. I'm not a huge fan of the display.
Sure.
I still keep going back to the PRW, whatever it is. Oh man, is this?
Well, and they keep changing the names on this too when they come out with new models that have different straps or they're a tie-in for a brand here or this or there.
It's so good, and also it has the compass. It just has the analog feel, which I like, and it has the digital readout at the bottom. It's anti-digi, so I've got all the stopwatch, and it's a bigger display. which is a lot of the times sacrificed. But it's also a much wider watch. I think this is like 52 millimeters across, 53 millimeters across.
Yeah, but the lug to lug isn't that long, so it doesn't over the wrist. It's not wearing massively over your arm, right? And I think the lug to lug measurement's one that a lot of people sleep on for watches. Casio is pretty good, where you can get a chunky watch, but it will be short from lug to lug.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So the SGW 100, I know that one. I think it's like, I thought it was like 4 to 5 years, maybe 3 to 4 years on the battery, but maybe it's up closer to 5. That was one of the things I wasn't a huge fan of with that particular model. I wish that was solar. If that thing was solar,
I'm fairly certain that they're doing solar ones now.
Are they? Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'll have to do some digging. You know how Casio is, where they'll do different versions of this and that. I will say that for that specific model, they advertise 3 years battery life, so doing it every 5 years is pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. That's what I thought. I thought it was like significantly less than 5.
Mm-hmm.
The Mudmasters might make a run for a perfect watch. Size issues, yeah. It's size issues. Yeah, if you have a smaller wrist, I think the size issue that is deceptive is how tall it is on the wrist. Mm-hmm. It's not really. There's some taller ones out there. The GBDH 2000 is taller than the Mudmaster, and so you kind of at this point, like when you get into this size, the larger Casio watches, which I've got a video on, which I think it's kind of fun. It was a fun one to do.
Mm-hmm. But
when you go down that route, you're going down the route because you want a bigger Casio watch.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I can speak to this because, again, this goes back to Quartz. Those Casio watches are thick. They've got all the functions. When we're looking at just comparing Quartz to mechanical, if you have the exact same watch in both, it will probably be slimmer if it's Quartz.
Yeah.
Right? As one of the things there. With the Mudmans and the Mudmasters, I agree. One of the things, and this is something I ran into a week and a half ago. How often is it that you're like, oh, I have an outlet behind a cabinet, and I need to go plug something into that outlet behind the cabinet? I had to pull this watch off to get my arm behind the cabinet to plug in one of the flat, prong extension cables.
Yeah.
If I had a Mudman on, I was not even getting my hand behind the cabinet in the first place, let alone all the way down to where the plug was, 2 feet beneath the cabinet, right?
Yeah.
So and that's the thing, is that there are perfect watches out there for specific people. Yeah. What's perfect for you and perfect for me will not be the same as perfect for our viewers, right? Yeah. And that's the important thing, is that you can't listen to one person to get all of your advice. You have to actually go out and try things, which is hard, but it's also fun.
Although let's be truthful and honest here, Paul. If what's perfect for you, what's perfect for me, just remember that it's more perfect because it came from me.
Oh, exactly.
It's just the way it is.
And it's less perfect if it came from me.
So, okay, Quartz watches, analog, digital. Let's talk about that real quick.
Mm-hmm. So, love them both.
Love them both. Okay, we're done. And with that, it's a wrap.
Well, truthfully, I know that you and I are both very big lovers of digital watches. We love digital watches because we have backlights. We're not relying on lume. They're easy to read. They tend to have a ton of functions. We both like Ani-Digi. Obviously, Ani-Digi is one of those things where you and I have struggled with some watches that have good backlights but crappy displays, or they have good displays but no backlights.
Right.
It's interesting because in a perfect world, I would have an Ani-Digi watch that had a perfectly sized display, which I can't tell you how big that is. That's got to be proportioned to the watch itself. And it would have a backlight, and the hands would have a good lume. But that's there's only one watch that I think gets close to that, which is the Arnie. But as you and I have both seen, the Arnie is a watch that is not perfect.
Every time you say that watch, I'm going to hold it up.
Hey, there we go.
There he is. All right.
Seiko is getting some money for this or something.
Oh, man. Yeah. Some free advertising.
I will say, now that I've kind of had a taste of what I think are some of the best digital watches out there, I've been experimenting more with the analog. And I just appreciate good Quartz analog. I go to the CWC divers, which are British military issued, really well made, and those are battery powered for most of them. I like that. This Tag Heuer is one I've been wearing a ton. This was not a particularly expensive watch. It's battery powered, and I was not like, oh, I wish it was mechanical. The fact that it's Quartz makes it easier for me.
Yeah, I got to say that there's a part of me that loves the digital.
Yeah,
and a good digital display, and I'm going back to MIPs. Okay, so I'm gonna pull out MIPs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if I'm gonna go with the best digital display, it's gonna be the MIP. Hands down. There's nothing better than the MIP. I'm going to pull up this other negative display. This is the GD350. I don't know if I can hold the case up here at the same time. We'll do the GBDH 2000. So the GD350, let's go right there. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the best negative digital display I've ever seen from Casio. The rest of them are worse than this.
Yeah.
By differing degrees.
Sure.
This is the clearest thing I've ever come across, and it's almost MIP like.
Almost,
highly recommend this for a negative display. The rest of them, I couldn't care less. But the digital display, I like the MIP, and I've actually gotten into a couple more, and I haven't finished the review on these.
Little sneak preview here.
This is the GBX, and this is the GBD 300. So the GBX 100, what does that one look like?
Oh yeah, that's really sharp looking.
And then the GBD 300. Okay, both MIP displays, step counters. There's some things about them I'm not a fan of.
Sure.
But I love the MIP display. I love the size. And so now when you start looking at the chunkiness factor, okay, so these resolve my chunkiness concern. This is the GBX one. Yeah, this is the GBX 100. Okay. The display, the reflection out there. There's the GBDH 2000. But then when you look at the chunkiness, it's just not the same.
No, it's so much thinner.
Yeah.
So much thinner.
So it's like, whoa. So now it's like MIP, they got some MIP options. Now, these watches, the 300 and the 100, they've been around for a while, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
So, but that's what I'm looking for. But at the same time, okay, so when it comes to analog versus digital, this is like I'm showing watches I haven't finished the review on.
You're allowed to. You're allowed to. This is your channel, Tim.
The Gravity Master, which I've been wearing this one a lot. Super frustrating. There's one part of this I want to pull my hair out. It's like, this is the dumbest thing ever that Casio's ever done. And I'm going to rip this design, this feature on this watch. But I love the analog display. It's the Gravity Master. Okay, now this is a Bluetooth. That's where the issue lies.
Really?
Okay?
Really?
This is a Bluetooth watch, and there's certain functions you can only adjust via Bluetooth.
Is it like the alarms are only Bluetooth?
Yes. So I just spoiled it, but I just
you're not spoiling anything, Tim.
But that's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
You have a watch like this, you should have the capacity to change the alarm or the timer on a watch like this, and if you can't do that, I want to throw this across the room. A la Jim Kincaid. So
the funny thing with saying that, I have a buddy who just texted me a couple days ago and said, "Hey, I got my first proper watch," and he bought a Casio with Bluetooth.
Yeah.
You know what he told me that he loved?
Yeah.
That he could set the alarms using just his phone and not have to try to tinker with the watch. So it's interesting that something that you hate, and that I also agree. I would rather have both. You don't give me one or the other. Give me both. Okay. But the fact that some people love that feature and then we don't like that feature, it's just interesting that it's like a polarizing topic, right?
But that means you have to have the phone.
Exactly. No, I agree.
And I don't want that. I don't want that dependence. I want to have, like this one, I can do the alarm. I can do the timer. It's super easy. It's all there. Negatory on both of those. And how am I supposed to look at the stopwatch on here?
Oh, you don't. That's the thing. It's just there.
Like it's there and it runs, but I'm telling you. But I love the analog display. I mean, just look at the size of that analog display.
Oh, it's massive. It's almost like how Breitling, they're really good with their displays being legible for their analog watches. And I agree. It's that there are functions we want, and Ani-Digi is so frustrating because there are some watches that get really close to perfect. But to me, I think the Arnie is one of the best Ani-Digi watches for how the displays work. But at the same time, it's not perfect, right? Obviously, it has issues. That display is tiny,
Oh, it is. But the analog side, I love the analog.
Oh, it's so legible, and the Lou one, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Now, did you pick up on my little thing on the shade on the digital display? Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Was that in your review?
In my review, I mentioned that the display, for me, I noticed with my eyes and just how things look, it's kind of purple is how the display turns out. And when I photographed it, it came out fairly purple too.
Yeah.
Right. I saw this comment, and it's funny because you have reviewed the Momentum C Quartz.
And
it was one that I loaned you.
Yeah. That's right.
And it was a rough watch for both of us.
Yep. And you loaned me I say loan because I think I'm gonna give it back to you. The other
no, it's yours. That watch is yours.
I don't think so, Paul. I don't think so. Look, you claim to have just 5 watches, but I'm here to say that you may have 6 plus. I will send a few your way.
Hey, you know.
All right.
Well, it's funny so this comment mentions Momentum, right?
Yeah,
the Canadian watch company. I did a video before I gave away my Momentums.
Yeah.
Apparently they might be coming back to me, but I gave away the 2 Momentum watches I owned. The CEO of Momentum left a comment on my video that was
really
negative. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. That was fantastic.
No, because it wasn't a very happy comment.
Whatever.
It was interesting. You got
to stir the pot to make the soup, right?
Well, here's my thing, and this is something that I know you and I are tangent kind of fellas. Yeah. We are both 100% transparently honest to a fault when it comes to reviewing stuff. We will not sugarcoat anything. We're not going to whitewash something to try to make something look better. If we don't like something about a thing that we're talking about, we're going to let you know that, right?
Or people.
Sometimes, but when it comes to the watches, that UDT that I sent you, please hold on to it until you got a review out for it.
I will review it.
The loom on that watch is terrible. And I mentioned that in my video, and the owner of the company said, well, we couldn't do a backlight. And in my video, I mentioned that they said no backlight because they wanted it to be thin. I get that. But if you're not doing a backlight on a dive watch, what does it need to have? Really good loom.
Yes.
And I've had dress watches with better loom than that watch does.
Yes.
Right. So it's disappointing because I even called my video Momentum watches are disappointing because their watches are great designs. They've got a history, but the quality control just ain't there for me to be able to recommend it to people.
Yeah.
So
just to put a punctuation mark on the analog side, Casio's, there's so many Casios out there, but MRW 100, is this 100 or 200?
I think it's 100, isn't it?
MRW 200.
200, okay.
Fantastic, $25 watch. Look at the legibility on that sucker. I mean, that's... Yep. And this is all along the lines of the 5610 or the 5600 series. Very small footprint on the wrist, very low profile on the...
Classic watch.
It's a classic analog, quartz movement, super easy to read. Loom on here is maybe okay.
It's $20 though. You can walk into your Walmart and buy one for the cost of a couple of sandwiches, right?
But if you look around a little bit, you can find and watch companies have been, because of the quartz crisis of the 70s, 80s, they make some really good. This is another Casio. Check out the design of the handset on there. I love the handset on that.
Oh yeah.
And so spend a little time with some of these companies and give a look at the quartz movement side, because if you can handle the 1 second tick, that's okay. Now, I want to mention something else, and that's the mecha quartz movement.
Yes.
Okay. So you get multiple ticks per second. I think this is 3.
It's a little bit lower. It's almost like some of the mechanical watch movements of like the 50s and 60s, where it's slower than like the modern 4 hertz, 3.5 hertz movements. Yeah. But that's a great, why aren't we seeing more solar mecha quartz? That would be a thing that I think would sell like crazy for enthusiasts.
If they could do more, if Casio could put a movement that has a little more tickage in there, that's a technical term. It's along the lines of watch crotch, a little more tickage in there. Much like the Bulova, because you were talking about this, I had to jump up and grab stuff. But the Bulova, if I can hold
very
this so you
smooth.
can see it. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is 12 times the smoothness of a 4K movement, a high beat movement. So
the only thing I've seen that's smoother than that are the Grand Seiko spring drives when they are properly wound up.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're pure smooth. There is no tick at all. So if you want to go smooth, you got to go Grand Seiko.
Going to our comments, I see from Robbie D, we have a comment here that I want to touch on because this is a watch that's actually one of the ones I thought about. It's a comment before that on Scurfa. Scurfa watches are cool. Are you familiar with Scurfa watches?
No.
Scurfa watches are a dive watch brand made by a guy who is an actual proper diver, who I don't know his full backstory, but I think it's either Paul Scurfa or Jack Scurfa. Basically, he's a guy who invented technology for diving, like modern diving, and he has a line of dive watches, and they're all really inexpensive. I think they're like $300 a watch, and they're quartz powered dive watches, and they're super legible. They're easy sizes to wear, and they're on my short list because those are watches that actual professionals would go out and wear, right? And I've always been fascinated by that. Yeah, saturation diving. Yeah, he was a saturation diver, so. Thank you, Robbie. Again, for our viewers, I've got a second screen here to be able to see what the comments are. But again, that's one of those things that's a brand that people might not know about, but they actually have history behind them. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I'll point out a couple more Quartz options, and one is Vero, and when it comes to chronographs, I was saying chronometers, chronographs. I actually like Quartz chronographs. I really
Absolutely.
do.
Yeah.
And the Mecha Quartz ones. There's another one that I have that's. Let's see if I can pull this one out. It's one that I did early on. And no, of course not. I'm gonna jump up and go grab it. Hang on one second.
Well, and I will say again, I'm looking at the comments. Yeah, Robbie, I've seen that every time that the Scrippa watches come up for availability, they're back out of stock real quick. Jardker mentioned the Swiss watch company ARC. Neat little thing is that with living here in Utah, Swiss watch company is relatively local. They're like a state away.
Yeah.
And their watches, as a company, they've really been working on trying to improve, and I hate to say image, but they've been working on making their watches look better, which obviously is a big selling point for people. Is you don't want to wear a watch that looks stupid, right? And I can appreciate what they do. And again, companies doing more things with quartz. They don't default to mechanical watches for everything. So I really do dig that.
Vero. All right, so chronograph. Easy to use. The winding, the whole thing, like it's just grab and go. You get the quartz accuracy. But it's just like there's so many cool things that they do with chronographs. I think the variety, because when you look at mechanical, when it comes to a mechanical chronograph movement, they're really expensive and typically they're really thick. So what you end up with on the quartz side is something that's much lower to the wrist. I've been wearing this Rudland a lot because I love the blue color on here, and it just, oh man, this is such a cool watch, and I get so many compliments on the bracelet on here because it's that 70s look. Yeah,
very 70s, very 80s. Yeah.
You know. But you run into, I think, with quartz chronographs, you run into a lot of positive things. I love quartz chronographs for that reason. This is, I think, one of those. I think this is a Mecha Quartz chronograph. If they make them, correct me if I'm wrong.
They do. Yeah. No, they absolutely do.
This is the Baltony, homage to the Hamilton. But I love this one. This one is one of my favorite EDC watches of all time. Then you get some kind of dressier stuff. And this is like the Zephyr. Or the Zeppelin. Full lume dial. This is such a fun watch. Such a fun looking watch.
Well, and I think full lume is a lot of fun. Like, truthfully, they're very, it's a fun parlor trick, right? You're like, hey, look at this. And the entire watch is glowing. I will say, speaking quartz chronographs, because again, that's a great way to do it because you don't have to worry about, because a lot of chronograph movements are hand wind only, right? And then one of the issues with a lot of, mechanical chronographs is that they might be stuck with where the subdials are because it's tied into the movement, right? With a lot of quartz chronographs, they're not stuck with the subdial locations being where they are. When I think about quartz chronographs that are dedicated chronographs, not an anti-digi or a digital watch that has a stopwatch function or countdown, the Bulova Lunar Pilot is one that I come back to. That's one that I've seen in person a bunch of times because they're popular enough. You can buy one on Amazon for a good price. It's not like you have to, specifically go to Bulva's website or go to a jeweler. You can get one. And people come to the watch meetups with those. And they look great. They're easy to use. They're battery powered with 2 or 3 year battery life. And again, that goes back to the whole thing that when people look between the same watch in quartz versus mechanical, I think people default to the mechanical, but it's like, look at the quartz ones. They might have some functions that you really, really, really prefer.
And so the Zeppelin, you know what function this has?
What does it have?
An alarm.
Oh, really? Is it?
Yeah,
is it...
it has an audible alarm.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
It's a quartz chronograph. Like again, like you were saying, like sometimes you get functions on there that you just don't get. Certainly don't get on a mechanical. And when it comes to, I want to say the thickness on this. I'll pull up this guy. This is my Hamilton. The most expensive watch I have is this guy right here. This is the Hamilton. It has the Valjoux.
Yeah, you showed me that in person, and that thing's chunky.
Yes, this is like a statement type watch, but it's an automatic movement. Has a rotor in the back, so once it gets going, it's really cool. And I put a different bracelet on here. This is the what is this one called?
I forget what it's called, but it reminds me of old school razor blades.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. But anyway, so I put that on there, and I think I also changed out the clasp on here, put a different clasp on here. So this is like a Frankenstein setup, but it's so much thicker than Okay, here's the Baltony. And when you
Yeah.
look at these two, I mean, it's not even close. And this is a
Mm-hmm.
double pass NATO. You take the double
Yep.
pass NATO out, and it lowers it down even more. Which, by the way, I can't stand double pass NATOs. I think I'm done with them. I tried
Well,
them.
there's the old trick of just cutting it. Just give it a cut. Snip off the bottom part.
Yeah, but that's like going to get an ice cream cone at Dairy Queen and say, "Hold the cone."
I mean,
like,
people do that.
I know. It's like that's
do.
weird. That's weird. Like hold the bun on a hamburger. Like okay.
You'll have to try out a Marine Nationale or paratrooper style strap then, because those they use elastic.
You've said that to me so many times. I keep forgetting it. I think I'm getting old.
Place an order from cheapest NATO straps, CNS. They're not the highest quality for their para straps, but you can see if you like the style. What I like is a lot of them are elastic.
Okay.
So they have a buckle and a hook, opposed to it being like a traditional pin buckle thing.
Yes.
So it's a little bit more durable. It kind of reminds me of like a seatbelt from like the 80s, out of like a minivan or something, where it was like more like push button and click thing.
Yeah.
And it's just a single pass beneath, but since it's elastic, it stretches a little bit. It feels less thick because it's not totally rigid nylon.
Yeah.
And they come in cool colors. They're easy to size. I felt like an idiot sizing mine for the first time because it was like, what do I do with this? But the mechanical watches, unless you get like an Omega Speedmaster, which are hand wound only, it's like those are still fairly chunky for what they are.
Yeah. And last one I want to show. This is another Quartz. This came from what's the company? They're going to go through Electrician Z.
Oh yeah. I know you were really big about that over the fall.
This is so cool. The designs on this company, these watches. Now they've stopped making these watches, and they're going down a different path.
Interesting.
And honestly, I'm not that thrilled with the new designs they're coming out with at all.
Huh.
But this is the old designs, and it's a little bit of that skeleton look.
Yeah.
When it comes to what's inside the case a little bit, but they also kind of hype it up.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the stuff is non-functional. It's decorative. But at the same time, quartz movement, and this one has such a cool light. I don't think I can get this to show, but yeah.
No, it's showing, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do that. There we go.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I mean, it's like, this is one of my favorite watches, and because of what's been going on in my life, it's like I wanted to do the best of 2024. I'm still going to do it. My watches that are 9.9 out of 10 and 10s.
Mm-hmm.
This watch is going to be in there. There's a few others that I've shown from 2024 that are going to be on that list, and we'll see if that one is the top watch.
Ooh.
It's cool. I like it, and it's just overall the aesthetics of the whole thing is kind of cool. And I know there's mechanical watches that do that. They have skeleton mechanical watches, and you've got the what's the movement that goes around.
Like a tourbillon, yeah. The
That's
Accutron's what I think of when I see that Electrician Z watch, because I think the Accutron, like our buddy Lincoln, so shout out Lincoln. I know he's got a couple watches like that, and a friend of mine, John, he's got an Accutron, and they're cool because they would actually etch the indices onto the crystal, so you had the movement and then that etched on there. So it's very cool.
And there's some other cool stuff out there too when it comes to mechanical movements where different things are moving, like the magnetic ball. There's the steel ball that moves around. I want to get one of those, but you have to find the one that has, I think, the hour ball on the inside and the minute ball on the outside, because there's two companies that make the movements for that. Sure. One of them is a really cheap version. The other one's the original design, which is actually really cool. So, yeah. All right, so we've gotten way off track. We have covered nothing off of the list.
No, we absolutely have, because we've talked about how, for us, the quartz crisis of 2025.
I have the list.
You have the list?
I have the list. But you're right, we did cover that. Okay, so we did talk about dial versus digital. Mm-hmm. Okay, we talked about that one. Quality of quartz watches we like. What are the qualities of quartz watches we like? We kind of talked about that.
We have talked about that. It's the fact that you can get the same things that you'd get in a mechanical watch, but they're going to be more reliable and thinner and cheaper and all of those things.
Okay. All right. So I might possibly be mistaken, but I'll never be wrong. Why do we wear the watches we wear most? We talked about that, didn't we?
We have. I mean, it boils down to that we both love mechanical watches, but also we like to not have to spend a couple of minutes in the morning setting them if we haven't worn it for a couple of days, right? Obviously, you do a lot of reviews. You're testing out different watches. I do reviews, but they're generally like fairly long term because doing the written stuff, I take so many photos and do all that. I like having a watch that is a little bit easier that I can go back to, right? The analogy I think I gave to you yesterday is, the guys on Top Gear weren't driving their Ferraris, from the show back home. They had their cars that they drove when they were not actively filming, right?
Yeah.
And for me at least, I know that I've been wearing the tag in my G-Shock a whole lot. This is my guaranteed nighttime watch. 8 o'clock rolls around, I throw this thing on because it has a backlight. I can tell the time when I wake up at 4 o'clock and say, "Oh, damn it, I need to go back to bed." Right?
Yeah.
So it's just easy. It's easy. That's why I like it.
Yeah. Oh man, EDC. So when we go out and do our thing, whatever the thing is that we're going to do, whether it's work, play, whatever that is, what do you bring for travel? Like, you're going to travel somewhere. So this is not like, let's just say it's at least most of the day, if not all day or multiple days. So for me, when I go to, like I said, go to church, I'm going to wear a church watch and probably change it when I get home, that kind of thing. So for you, do you have anything EDC wise that you wear?
I mean, this is one of those
Quartz.
things where that's Quartz. Well, battery powered is my cellular device. I will say this, like the most recent trip I did, I traveled from Salt Lake City down to Las Vegas back in January for SHOT Show, which is a firearms industry show for those that don't know that. And I was gone for 5 days, and what I packed was just what I would normally carry, plus some clothing, right? And that sounds like, well, duh, right? For me, I won't show everything, but I always carry my cell phone. I'm wearing some flavor of wristwatch. I'm carrying a pocket knife, and I'm carrying defensive tools. So things like pepper spray and a firearm, or multiple firearms, depending on the clothing I'm wearing. A couple of things that are basically non-negotiable, and this is going to be my, as I've heard people call it, snivel gear, chapstick. People sleep on chapstick. If you're in the desert, do you know what's really nice to have that's hard to find sometimes? Chapstick, right?
Water?
That's a big one.
Uh-huh.
Well, water, yes. Don't get me wrong. You got to have water, but I'm not carrying a canteen tucked into my pants, I get weird looks from people if I did that. Carrying a pen. People don't carry pens, but sometimes you need one to write the check at the, getting dinner. And something that I know you and I both love, Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
So I carry a full-size pocket knife plus a Swiss Army knife.
Yep.
And the pocket knife is for larger things. Notably, I used my Spyderco here for cutting my way out of my Forerunner last year after I got rolled over in my T-bone accident. But the Swiss Army knife is a thing that, if I'm working in my workshop and I get splinters in my hand, I have tweezers here. I have a nail file if I have a long nail or something. I've got all those tools, and this is something that if you bust this out at your office or wherever you might be, you probably won't get HR called on you for having a weapon, right?
Yeah.
So I know we're both lovers of the Swiss Army knife because they're just very, versatile. Yeah. And I know we both carry flashlights. I carry a big flashlight because I'm crazy, but flashlight.
I gotta pull this stuff out of my pocket here. Okay.
I will say for returning viewers who are familiar with my EDC stuff from the past, the big thing that changed is I got a different leather belt. When I'm wearing pants, which I'm in gym clothing right now, so I'm not wearing a leather belt. I bought one of the Magpul Tejas belts, which are their really high quality leather. Then they have a plastic liner. It's made to help support the weight of a gun better. So I have one of those belts, and they run about $90, and they take a little while to get there because they're sometimes they make them to order. Good belt though, so I'd recommend that.
Yeah. All right. This is what I carry. I've been carrying it so much. Now I vary a little bit on one of them because it depends on where I'm going and what resources I have to have on me versus with me. And that's part of my process when it comes to EDC. But start off with a pen, tactile turn, bolt action pen. What's really cool, this is a bronze pen, so you get a lot of the oxidation, different colors on there, which really is kind of cool. All right, tactile turn pen. I love the bolt action piece because I know when it's ready to write, when it's not, and it's not going to accidentally be with the pen out. Flashlight. This is the Welltool T1 Pro version 2. So this has the high, medium, low functions on here. The version 1 has just high and low. But this guy is awesome. And tactical flashlight. It's just, I've been carrying this one a lot. I haven't been carrying my, what was it? What was the name of that one? It was the right angle Lumen Top, I think. The Lumen Top H1. Yeah. That is a great flashlight as well. It's a 1440 AA size battery. This is I think there's also 1440 AA size battery in here. Okay. So that's the flashlight. Always carry a full knife. This is the Civivi Vision with the what's the lock on here? I forget the name of the lock. It's a locking system.
Yeah.
But I like it. I like the fact that when I grab the locking system, I'm actually getting under there with my finger and pulling it back into my hand, and it just
it's keeping your fingers out of the way. The travel path of the blade there.
Yeah. Swiss Army knife. So this is the Swiss champ.
That is a big one.
Now, hey, you can pull this off when you have a pocket clip, because then it doesn't sit down in your pocket. It's vertical in your pocket. Okay. So I wear this, and this is why I say it depends on what I'm doing and what I want with me or what I want on me. So if I'm out, doing stuff and I have to have, like, if I'm traveling, it's like I need all the tools because I'm not going to bring everything else. I bring the Swiss champ. Okay. Which it has all the tools. It has the Phillips flathead. It has pliers, and the pliers are actually pretty good. They're fairly robust.
Mm-hmm. Okay? Yeah.
Knives, all this stuff. I don't want to get into that one too much, but this is the game changer for me. It's another Swiss Army knife. So I have two of them.
Ooh.
And it's the nail clip.
Oh yeah. It's
the nail clip.
Yeah.
It has the fingernail on here, so it flips over. And you got your fingernail clipper.
Oh, look at that.
All right. Flip that back over. It goes right back in. You've got the knife. You've got the file. So I've got a small knife, just like on the small, was it the 50 millimeter model or whatever it is? I don't know what the numbers are. That's the file. Okay, that's the file. It'll be pulled the knife.
Hey, I use the file more than the knife sometimes.
I do too. I love the file because I'm always tearing a nail or something.
Uh-huh.
All right. So that's a cool thing. Then, of course, you got the toothpick, and you got... the toothpick and the tweezer, which is also really good. And I thought, the scissors. It also has the scissors. So it has like all the things that I want. And because it has the stupid knife on there, I can't take it through TSA.
Yeah.
I wish they could make this without the knife, put one other tool on here, maybe a small Phillips or something like that, so I could take this through TSA. Because this, to me...
So I'm guessing you don't travel with a checked bag then?
I try not to.
Sure.
I try not to. Yeah.
Fair.
But when I do, then I just load everything up. I have all kinds of knives and other.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is when I'm
batteries.
traveling with a checked container, I bring a Pelican case, and that makes it. I fly. So this is a little bit of a side thing, but flying with firearms in the U.S., people think you can't do it, but there's a process to do it. It's TSA safe, and it's every airline has their own thing. But the nice thing there is when you're doing that. I basically am guaranteed to have a checked bag. So I always had the ability to throw in the things that might have knives because I'm carrying a gun. I saw this comment. He wants an ideal review on the nail.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Yeah, it's coming. I tell you what, I will not wear any pants, shorts, or anything. Well, I will wear pants and I will wear shorts, but I won't wear them without the nail clip. It is. I don't know how many times you look at, like, you tear a fingernail or whatever, and how bothersome that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if you can actually take care of it and file it down. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No. Say it's the same thing there of like with travel, I go out of my way to make sure I can bring the things that I want to have with me, which is not a thing that everyone can do, right? I will say though, the nail file and clippers, even the scissors on the Swiss Army knives are great if you have if you break off part of a nail and you don't have just the scissors on there are so precise. And perfect for that. And that's one of those things is that we don't have to just carry or have things that are a necessity. There are things that are nice to have. Like I could live without chapstick, but life would really suck if I didn't have chapstick when I'm out in the desert or, whatever it might be. Talking about what we're traveling with, I carry an everyday carry bag. It's not going to be like on my person when I get out of my car to go and get gas at the gas station, but it's a thing that'll ride in my vehicle. If I'm staying somewhere for the evening, it'll come in with me. And we could do a video on that in the future. I actually have an article from a couple of years ago that I carry, but it's like first aid stuff and then IFAC stuff, so individual first aid kits, something that you and I did a live show on last year.
Yes, yep.
Where I've got basically the boo-boo stuff and then like the oh god, I've lost my arm type stuff, right? Yeah. Like the emergency stuff versus the I caught a splinter, need to put some Neosporin and a Band-Aid on, right?
Yeah, right.
I started carrying, and this might seem a little crazy, but with living in Utah and again with you in Montana, I carry fire starter stuff and then some water filtration stuff in my everyday carry bag. Because if you get stuck somewhere, you want to keep, water in your vehicle, but you might not have access to clean water if you have to, walk a couple miles. Having a Life Straw or a Sawyer mini filter is easy. And again, I think you and I covered water filtration in a live show last year.
We should go back and do that. Yeah.
Wait, I think it'd be fun. I carry a fixed blade knife in my backpack, and again, not this. For me, knives are not weapons. They can be, but they're survival tools or everyday carry tools. Yeah. I carry a fixed blade knife that if I have to go and baton through something, I can. If I need to use it as a pry bar, I've got a thick enough one for that. And then I carry basically like a everything else electronics container in there. So spare batteries for flashlights, spare batteries for a headlamp. I carry a small little headlamp, like a black diamond, climbing headlamp, because that's if you need to get beneath your car, having this in your hand or clipping it to a hat sucks way more than just putting a headlamp onto your head, right?
Right.
But we can talk about that in the future. But the long and the short is that when it comes to whatever you're carrying, Tim and I's are tailored for us. Right. I wouldn't tell you to copy what I'm carrying or to copy what Tim's carrying. Yeah. Figure out what needs you have and then carry the things that help you out with those needs. And then figure out things that aren't necessarily needs, but you're like, well, my life would be easier if I had a handkerchief, or you're carrying a rag, or you're carrying some chapstick, or maybe a small lighter or a box of matches. Right. Those are things that if you think you might need them and you actually do use them, cram them in your pockets. Right.
All right. So here's the challenge question for you, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
All the things you showed out of your pocket, you have just one thing. What's the one thing out of that group of things you're going to pull and bring with you?
So if I can only have one of my pocket things to carry, truth be told, it's a Swiss Army knife. Because this is something that has enough tools that I can use, right? Yeah. There was a period of time where I used to carry a Leatherman, like a full-size Leatherman. Yeah. But that's 3/4 pound in your pockets. I have pistols that weigh less than my Leathermans do. Right, like okay, like the Leatherman's great in the backpack, but when it's on your waist, this is like 2 ounces for a thing that mine has knives. I've got bottle openers, I've got multiple screwdrivers, I have a corkscrew, which the biggest emergency is having a nice bottle of red wine and you can't crack it open. That's the biggest emergency out there. So having a corkscrew is handy. This Swiss Army knife for me. What would it be for you, Tim?
Swiss Army knife. Now it depends on what the conditions are.
Sure.
If I'm going out and I know there's a high likelihood I'm hunting or whatever, it's like I want multiple tools. I'm bringing this. Yeah. If I'm going out to eat or that kind of thing, or just traveling, it's going to be the nail clip.
Sure.
I don't know what, it never leaves my, I get nervous if I don't have it with me.
It's the emotional support nail clip.
Yeah, but it just has all the basics of what I think I really need, except it doesn't have any tools like a screwdriver type thing. I suppose the nail file could possibly do that, but
it wouldn't be very good at that, though. Is the thing.
But you get something like the Huntsman or the Ranger, or this is the Swiss Champ, and the Swiss Champ. I gotta say, you put a pocket clip on there, it's not that bad.
And it still weighs less than a Leatherman.
Yeah, and you've got so many more tools on there, so many more variety of tools. Because sometimes you get the right. It has the tool, but it's not in the right configuration. Yeah. And so when you have the right configuration, you're not stripping the screw heads as much, or you're making the cut, or you're bending things or carving things the right way because it's the right tool.
It's a simple thing. You have 2 knives on a lot of these Swiss Army knives. You have a big one and a small one. And sometimes, as we both know, you can do a lot of work with a big knife when you need a small knife. But generally speaking, if you need a small knife, you want a small knife, right? Yeah. You wouldn't want to try to gut and skin a deer with an 8-inch Bowie knife, right? No. No, that's not a thing that you'd want to do.
Okay, so on your Swiss Army knife, what do you open boxes with? Big knife or small knife?
So mine is actually old enough that I only have a small knife on this one. This is, I think, the Woodsman. This is one that my dad got as a wedding gift 30-something years ago. Oh. So I only have one knife on here, and it won't show up on the camera because of how the lighting is, but you can see the knife is pretty dirty. Yeah. It's sharp, but that's from when I worked retail during college a decade ago now at this point. This thing opened up a whole lot of cardboard boxes of stuff that we were stocking in our store. Mm-hmm. To the point that my knife, I should probably retire the Swiss Army knife because I have other ones, but I like this one. My knife bezel has actually started to recede back, kind of like the hairline on someone, it's coming up because I've sharpened it so many times. Not you, Tim.
Hey, the state of Florida is receding. The peninsula of Florida is going away.
But it's on this knife, it's hard to see it, but you can see where the choil is here. Yeah. The blade used to be a little bit further down, but since I've sharpened this enough over the years, it's like that. And I'll tell you, for this is a little tidbit for people who are wondering, the Swiss Army knives, Victorinox, they don't usually advertise the steel used in these. I think it's a it's similar to what Kershaw used to use, where it's one of the Sandvik razor blade steels is what they use for a lot of this. They use aluminum for the part of the scales, and then they use steel. I think it's like a 12C26N. It's very soft. If you will dull out the blades on Swiss Army knives, but then the idea is they're very, very easy to sharpen, right? You don't have to be trained in sharpening knives to touch up the blade on one of these things.
But it would help.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. I put a lot of money into a nice knife sharpening system to be out in my workshop. Yeah. And now I've got a $400 thing for sharpening my, free Swiss Army knife.
Right.
Among other knives.
It's a sledgehammer to kill a mosquito, right?
I believe that there's a phrase that there is no such thing as overkill.
Right, especially if you're dead. Like, it doesn't matter. So last topic, and it's not on the list. This is a pop. This is
off the. Well,
actually, we have two things. We have one more question after this, but I want to get this in because it's watch related.
Yes.
Vintage watches.
Ooh, fun.
Okay, so one of the things about Quartz watches is they've been around, like you said, for so long that you can get some really cool looking Quartz vintage watches that are just outstanding. And I absolutely love this. I've got a couple others I'm going to show you.
Well, and the fun thing here, do you know what the cutoff is for vintage watches now if you were to ask like a watch shop?
I think it's 20 years.
25.
25.
So for all of our viewers, and I see that Jardker has to leave, so Jardker, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
If vintage is 25 years or older, so that's a fun thing that if you go, I have this Casio that I bought in 1997. Hey, that's a vintage Casio now. So,
so this is the IRW 100. Okay.
Cool looking watch.
That out. Cool looking watch. Like this is, spend a little time on eBay, and this one is tough solar, and it's also atomic timekeeping. Like. And it has this retro look to it, 90s look, early 90s look to it.
But it's solar and atomic timekeeping.
EL, electroluminescent, and the light button is down here on the 6 o'clock position. All three adjustment buttons are on this side, which is really kind of cool too.
Oh, yeah.
So just really kind of a cool setup when it comes to the watch, and extremely thin. Right?
And the thing is, that looks very modern because that looks like a smartwatch. But obviously it came out 20 years before smartwatches did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's super cool looking.
Okay. Here's a couple others, and these are the data bank version. This is the analog digital data bank. This is the ABC30. ABC30. And
that is super cool.
Yeah, just fantastic. And it has a light that lights up the analog and the digital.
Oh, that's awesome. Normally it's just one. That's awesome.
Let's see if I can remember where's the light.
Do you have the missile codes to turn the light on for this Casio?
I don't know if I can do this with all these lights on here.
Yeah, you can see it a little bit. Yeah, you don't really see it on the analog display here, but you can see it on the digital part. Yeah, you can see it. It turns almost like a green color.
Yeah. Okay. So you got that one. All right. So that's kind of cool, Annie. This is the watch that I pined over when I was in junior high. This is the DBC 611. Okay. Flat touchscreen or flat keyboard. Okay. So that's really cool. But this is just, what would this be? Late 80s?
Yeah.
Mid to late 80s.
I know a lot of people tie the calculator watch and the data bank to the Back to the Future, but that was like the premium version of that watch.
Yeah.
That was the nicer one that had more metal and more positive buttons and all those things.
And then you can get into some really cool stuff. The CMD 40.
Ooh, right? Oh yeah, this is the TV watch.
This is the TV watch.
Yeah.
So you could this is a learning remote control. So there's a learning function on here. You put the remote control face-to-face infrared sensor to infrared sensor, and it will learn whatever button you press on the remote control, you can learn it on the watch. And I can turn the TV on and off with this watch in my house, and it's a flat screen smart TV. So that technology, this goes back, I think, to the mid-90s. I think this is mid-90s.
Yeah.
And it's still useful today, 30 plus years ago. And it's just so cool. And you get some of this old vintage stuff, like it's just really cool. I'm going to put this one on. I haven't worn the CMD 40 for a while.
Well, let's say I'm currently wearing a vintage Quartz watch, and this has been my daily watch for a long time. And I got it in December. I think I've probably worn it. We've had probably about 90 days since I bought this, and I think I've probably worn it as my dedicated watch for the day. Because I wear the G-Shock at night when I'm sleeping. I take this off in the morning and throw something else on, unless I go into the gym in this gym watch. This has probably gotten maybe half the wear time I've had since the start of the year, and it's Quartz convenience, but then also it's thin, it's cool. No one has one of these, so I get to feel like the special guy with a watch that no one else has.
Right.
And I will say this is not a thing of like, oh, buy something that makes you unique so you feel better. Every time I post this on like Watch Crunch, I'll have people who leave a comment saying this thing's so cool, I never see these. And there's something to be said about buying cool. Vintage. Am I? I don't know.
Yeah, you're pretty cool. I think what they're really saying is you're cool, and the watch you're wearing is cool too.
The watch is cooler than me. I'll say that, because if you put this on, anyone who wears this thing looks cool. Yeah. You know, because there's nothing wrong with big watches, but there's said something when you throw on a tiny watch and you just rock a watch that's the size of like a little bigger than a quarter. Like a silver dollar is bigger than this watch is.
Yeah. Right.
You know.
Right.
But yeah, that's the thing is that when you look at vintage Quartz, you can get some crazy deals on things that nobody else has.
That's right.
And you know what servicing Quartz needs? Exactly, it doesn't. If the movement's bad, you replace it. Yeah. And the nice thing is that it's very easy to fit dials and hands to new Quartz movements, because a lot of them have just been iterations of the same thing.
And when it comes to vintage, they're not making these anymore.
Exactly.
So every year that goes by, there's fewer and fewer of them out there because they break down, get crushed, whatever, get lost, abused, whatever the situation is. So you hang on to a vintage watch, and some of these watches are just like, they're just so cool. Like this ABC 30. I didn't know that they made an Anti-Digi databank calculator watch with a light for both the analog and the digital display. Check out the review on this one. If you want to see the light on this, it's on the review in my playlist. But those are just some cool things when it comes to vintage. Like they've been around long enough with Quartz that there's some really unique stuff out there that they don't make anymore. Like your Tag Heuer, like they're just not making that anymore. So.
I will say this. I will give props to Tag Heuer, Modern Tag, and I'm not I don't own any of their new stuff. They're not paying me. They're actually one of the only Swiss luxury companies I've seen that have been doing solar quartz watches. Tag does solar quartz dive watches these days, and they're a Swiss luxury company, right? So props to them for actually caring about quartz watches enough to keep doing them.
Yeah, and if Tag actually contacts you to do a review, they also have to send me a watch just in case.
Well, no,
you've been promoting Tag this entire time. So if they I'm the one in charge of this live stream. So really, they should send 2 watches.
Well, I'll tell you what. If they offer to let me borrow one, I'll say I need it for 2 months, and I'll have it for a few weeks. You can have it for a few weeks.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. I'd love to do a Tag. When I get down there for the next watch meetup, which is the end of this month, right? The 29th?
Yeah.
I am like dead set on coming down to that one. So if anybody's in that area, I'd love to meet new people down there.
Yeah.
Get together with Paul and Lincoln down there. Lincoln's awesome. He has so many cool watches. I can't wait to see Lincoln.
You haven't seen it, but he bought the Hamilton Dune watch. So it's the Hamilton Ventura, but it's a digital one that has blue color for the movie Dune. It was a tie-in for Dune.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of those watches that, we always say photos don't give you justice. You have to go see it in person. Yeah. That's one of those watches. If you just saw the photos, you're like, that thing's stupid. Then you see it in person, you're like, I'm like just staring at it. It's like, wow, that's one of those watches. It's like, okay, no one has this. Yeah. And even Lincoln said he only bought it because he got it for an insane discount, but also like it's so unique. No one has that watch.
Yeah. And then, okay, this is a bonus question or bonus thing. But then you can get Quartz watches that are just flat out fun and totally ridiculous.
It better be, yeah.
So this is the legendary watch that went to, what was the stores? Breitling?
So we went to Breitling Grand Seiko in the Tag Heuer boutique, and that was the only watch that any of the staff asked to look at was that thing that Tim was wearing.
It's a $10 watch from AliExpress. It has 2 Quartz watches. 2 independent clocks on here. Each has its own battery. This crown controls this watch. This crown controls this. It's a GMT.
Hey, look at that.
But it's a separate Quartz watch. Or Quartz,
I'll take that.
movement.
That works better for me. I 2 crowns is easier for me to operate than to have one crown that does a bunch of stuff.
And you know what else it's got on there, Paul? It's got a thermometer in degrees Canadian. And then it's also got the compass, which is totally worthless. So for $10, you at least get comments. And that's pretty much where you have to kind of leave it.
See, what we got to do is we got to put a longer strap on that thing, and then you need to wear it on your ankle like it's an ankle brace. And people say, "What are you wearing?" And you just pull up your pant leg and you show them that.
Doing time. I'm doing time.
Hey, there you go.
You know, it's an ankle break monitoring
Hey,
bracelet.
if you wear two, you can see you're doing double time because it's got two
double
watches
time,
on there.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, last thing, and then we got to start wrapping this up. Which, by the way, this is another fun episode. Watch advice for newbies.
Yeah.
Watch advice for newbies. Not watch out for newbies, but watch advice for newbies.
The thing we discussed this a little bit yesterday, and this will probably be another episode in the future of just talking about if you're getting into watches, what you should look out for.
Yeah.
The two big things I can tell people is vet the opinions of people that you are watching online. Now, obviously, Tim and I are not people who have been given free watches by companies. We're not getting paid by Seiko or Citizen or whatever to give positive reviews. But there are people out there that are accepting money in exchange for reviews, and you kind of want to try to pay attention to certain keywords they might be saying, like you need this, or if you don't have this, you're behind the times, or whatever it might be. Don't feel obligated to buy things because people tell you that you should, right? When you're looking at an opinion of someone, you need to see, like, is this an honest opinion or is there some sort of financial backing behind it, right? That's the first thing I'd say. The second thing is to try to figure out what you actually like. And I know that sounds goofy. You're like, I know what I like. I like vanilla ice cream and I like, filet mignon. When it comes to watches, it took me like 2 years to figure out what I like in watches. And that's why I'm comfortable with just, 5 watches, which 5 watches is still a lot of watches, right? I know that I like dive watches and I know the features that I like. I need to have a watch that can tell the time. Duh, right? But be legible. And then a watch that has the date. If it doesn't have the date, I'm never wearing it. Because I use the date function on my watches almost as much as I use the time. For writing things or making plans or signing stuff, I use the date all of the time. So for me, I know what I like in watches, and that generally means that when I'm buying, I'm only buying something I know I'm going to like. And again, that sounds obvious. Buy the things you like. You wouldn't, buy something that you're going to dislike. But it takes time to figure out what you like. Once you start to think more actively about this is what I like, so I'm going to make a purchase based on what I like, you'll generally find that you're happier with the purchases you make and you won't be getting rid of watches as often. Now, obviously, Tim and I test a lot of watches, so we cycle through stuff, but, that's just part of that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say start cheap. Whatever you're going to do, start cheap. Because it is a process that you get into and opinions change. You realize that something you may have liked, you don't like as much, and just keep the loss as minimal as possible. So keep the cost down. I love Kevin O'Leary when he does stuff with what's the other guy's name? Kevin Bacon? No, Kevin O'Leary and
Kevin Bacon. I love Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, Teddy Baldessar. They get on there and they talk about like not taking out loans. Absolutely, do not take out loans. Do not do it on credit. Like, just go cheap. Like, and here's another reason why. Not like going cheap, but go to a price point where if the watch gets damaged, destroyed, or stolen, it's not the end of the world for you. If you're putting all of your eggs into one basket, you get a really nice Rolex Submariner or a Daytona or something like that, and it gets stolen, man, that would be crushing. That's one of the reasons why I don't like buying the high-end watches. This watch is my most expensive watch, and I do monitor where I wear the watch because it's one of those things. It's like, I'm not exactly all that keen on losing this watch. As a matter of fact, I think this is one of the watches I'm going to sell on my website in the very, very near future. Just because I don't wear it enough. And at the same time, that kind of mindset means I'm not wearing the watch enough. And to me, that's like, if you're going to get a watch, you need to wear it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No point in buying something if you ain't going to wear it, right?
Yeah.
And again, that does not mean that you have to buy XYZ brand. It just means you have to make that distinction for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, no, I'm right there with you. And I will say everybody's budget is different, right? What is inexpensive for you and I might be different for somebody else, right? So I have certainly seen people who, for them, a $20 US Casio, that is a thing that is expensive for them because of where they live and whatnot. And again, that goes back to do not feel bad about what you buy. If you buy a Casio Royale, which is a watch that I like a lot, I know Tim's a little bit more maligned against it.
I hate it.
Exactly. If you buy that Casio Royale or you buy the MR200, or even if you go, I have an F91 that I really like, those are all fantastic watches. Obviously, there are watches that we like more or less than those. But the example I'll give you,
F201.
The Gray Man.
The Gray Man. Yeah,
Yeah,
the W800.
and this goes back into it for advice for newbies is do not feel obligated to have to spend a certain amount. Right? This is again a little tangent thing. We had our watch meetup yesterday, and we had a couple of people that it was their first time coming to a watch meetup with other people. And I know people will say that's nerdy, whatever. Cool, who cares? It's fun. And one of the gentlemen said, I feel so much pressure. It's palpable tension for what I should pick to wear tomorrow. And I told him, I said, my friend, the stakes have never been lower. There should be no stress here. I don't care what you're wearing. You could come in with nothing on your arm and Sharpie a circle on there and a couple of hands, and I'd be happy. It's about enjoying what you like. And again, that goes back into figuring out what you like. The F91 was my springboard into better Casios, right? Hey, look at that.
All right, so here's a batch of under $40.
Exactly.
Under $40, everybody. The F201. No, this is the 217. So if you're going to get an F91, get the 217. You'll be much happier, better light, much bigger, more legible. It's lightweight. But if you're looking for something small, the F91 it's a piece of crap, but it works. Mm-hmm. This is the W736 Vibrate Alert. It has the what else does it have on here? It has an awesome light on here. It does all the normal stuff of a Casio, but Vibrate Alert. Okay, I think this is 100 meters of water resistance. Let me double check this one. And the 217 is, I think, 50. All right. This is the Gray Man, the W800, 100 meters of water resistance, 10-year battery. Awesome watch. This is a different strap I took it off of. Actually, I took it off of this MRW 200, and I put it on here. And didn't I? That's the same one. Yeah, that's right. I put it onto the Gray Man. Okay. So because I tried doing a hydro oil fill on this, and it didn't work out. So I salvaged the strap. MRW 200 Magpie, if you want a straight up Casio analog, awesome watch. Mm-hmm. And then the last one is the 201, the F201. What a great little watch. It has all the cool stuff on there. So again, under $40, you can get into some of that stuff that just is so cool. I want to mention one other one that's coming up, and this is kind of the metallic stuff. And this is the AB. Where's the listing on this one? ABL 100. This is a Japanese market one. And I got this idea from Dave over at Just the Watch. He did a review on this one. It's like, that is a cool looking watch. Look at that bracelet on there.
Yeah, that bracelet. I'm trying to think of what it reminds me of, but it looks so cool.
That is so cool. This has a step counter.
Oh, so really? That has a step counter.
This has a step counter. So this has all the functions that a normal Casio has, but it's also Bluetooth with a step counter.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure Bluetooth. Crazy cool. Okay, now this is not cheap. Okay, this is like $100 and some. Okay, but it's the idea that with the digital watches, there's so many functions that you can get with the digital watch. So that's all I had to say about that. I think we need to wrap this up.
Well, do you have a review on the A168?
No.
That's one you should cover.
Okay.
That's one that I think this is the transparent part of Paul. That's a cool watch. It's like an F91 if it didn't suck. It has a bracelet that's actually comfortable.
Okay.
And it's a watch that it is the most popular digital watch on Amazon. And that means people have interest about them. They have questions. They have the desire to watch videos on it. And it's funny because I actually bought one and gave it to a friend of mine's wife. He was getting deployed to Iraq last year. And, he was getting into watches. He bought an Alpinist. And his wife's like, I don't know, the watch thing. And I said, hey, here's this. And for her, she treats it like a bracelet that tells the time. And that is something that is, if you just do it like that little click in there, it's like, okay, this is a piece of jewelry that tells me the time. That changes how people look at them. And that will either make you like them less or like them more. Yeah. So the A168, $20, great backlight. It's got all the functions you need. It's an F91 that doesn't suck. It's as simple as that.
Or you can go the Fine Metal series that Jim Kincaid has over at his channel. They're several $100s. I mean, they're not cheap.
Yeah.
But they are blinged out. Mm-hmm. I mean, if that wasn't, I don't want to say what's going through my mind as far as what that reminds me of, but like Jim needs to have like gold chains around his neck when he's wearing that watch. I mean, it's so gold looking. But again, the quartz watch world, there are watches out there that are several $1,000s. There are some Casios that are like $4,000 to $8,000 quartz.
You can get Cartier tanks that are solar quartz.
Yeah.
You know, I think that you can get reversos that are solar quartz.
Yeah.
And they don't even have a secondhand. So I imagine that the quartz life on that is probably very impressive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd
Cool
say again, we're talking newbies, talking our love for quartz. If you are getting into watches and you're saying, where do I start? Timex Casio. Yep. Quartz from Timex and Casio. If you buy a Timex Expedition on Amazon for $35, that's a watch that you will not be disappointed with. If you buy a Casio, anything that's $20 to $30 that has a good backlight that's digital or is analog, you're not going to be disappointed. It's as simple as that.
And there's some good like Seikos out there. There's some good Citizens. I love Citizen. The Eco Drive.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The Eco Drive solar is really, really awesome.
And you can get a lot of those for incredibly reasonable prices. I bought one since my dad said I don't like mechanical watches. I bought him a Citizen Eco Drive field watch on eBay for brand new for an excellent price, and he loves it.
And I'm partial to the Eco Drive over Seiko. I would so much go with the Citizen side on the solar quartz.
You know how I feel about Seiko.
Yeah.
So. You were holding the thing that spent more time in the postage than it has.
Did you mention the Arnie? Now, I was on Seiko's website a couple of days ago, and they had a guy who had posted a month ago that he had bought 3 of these, and they all 3 reset. Mm-hmm. So they still have issues. So that's another reason why I don't recommend it for that. Other than the legendary Hollywood thing, go for it. It's awesome.
If you know you can get one that works, but that's one of those issues of if I have to say that, it's like get in a car that has functioning airbags. It's like, I don't want to find out that it doesn't have that. Yeah. And that Arnie had to go back to Seiko's Repair Center in New Jersey twice last year to get fixed after they put a defective movement in there the first time I sent it in.
Well, that reminds us to say if you're going to buy a new watch, it's good to have that manufacturer's warranty. Mm-hmm. I don't think Casio you run into as many issues with Casios, but some of these other like Seikos and some of these other companies, I would make sure that you have a warranty that goes with it.
Oh, and I will say this: is the joy of Casio is that if you're okay with giving Bezos some money, you can buy a Casio on Amazon, and if it has issues, it's Amazon. Right. You can get your money back lickety splits, right? Yeah. But I will say, not that it doesn't happen. Casio's quality control is a whole lot better than a lot of other watch companies, and they primarily sell watches that cost you as much as a lunch out somewhere. Mm-hmm. So a cheap lunch out somewhere these days, really.
That's right. Especially if it doesn't have eggs.
Oh, please don't. I love eggs. And eggs, I'm like, when I start to compare the price of eggs to the price of ammunition, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, the 2 things in the last 5 years have just skyrocketed: eggs and ammunition. It's like pulling the heart out of some of us guys. It's like, it's I have like eggs every morning.
I'm looking at getting a reloading set up for my house, and my girlfriend and I are looking at getting chickens. It's like, I want to eat more eggs.
Nice. Priorities.
Exactly.
All right. Anything coming up on your channel? Let's wrap it up.
I've got some interesting things coming up. We're about to hit 2,000 subs on the channel, and I've got a little special series there. We continuing to do things. I'll send you a link to it. But we're hosting a watch meetup here in Salt Lake City at the end of the month on March 29th, in the middle of Salt Lake County, so it's easy enough to get to if you're in the area. It's hosted by me, and we do all the planning for it through Watch Crunch, the Watch Media app, which you don't have to be on Watch Crunch to come to the meetup, but that's just the easiest way for us to get the information out there about it. And then, I can't think of much beyond that. Just continuing on. I do want to give a shout out, since I know that this is something that you and I were doing last year, of, someone that we enjoy online, whether it's YouTube or somewhere else. I have a buddy named Matt. He runs a YouTube channel called Hipster Tactical, and he does firearm videos that are a different perspective. He has his kind of esoteric interests when it comes to handguns. Mm-hmm. And all of his videos, he's covering guns that you will not commonly see. It could be a look at some of the esoteric Beretta pistols from the late 90s or early 2000s, or a deep dive into West German SIGs from like the 70s. So I want to give him a shout out, Hipster Tactical. He's a good friend of mine. He's written a couple of articles for our website over the years. But he just hit 5,000 subs. So I wanted to give him a shout out here.
Good.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how about you, Tim?
Channel-wise, getting back into the swing of things again. I've got a bunch of Casios that would come through the channel. What else do I have? I've got to do the end of the year in March. Top 2024 watches that were just outstanding watches. And I'm going to sell a bunch of these watches, too. I'm looking at this stack. It's like, I think I'm actually going to keep the Casios and get rid of most of my mechanical watches.
Hey, go for it.
I think that's what's going to happen. because that's where I'm at, and why not? What else is there channel wise? I started a new series, a new what do you call it? Playlist called the Faith Series. So because of just things going on in my life, I've just been grounded in God and the Bible and all that stuff. So what I'm hoping for, and if anybody's out there, any YouTube hosts or anybody who has wants to share their faith story, spend about a half an hour talking about it. I would love to do interviews just to get those faith stories out there. I think it's just something that everybody needs to hear about. You know, it's like life is tough for everybody, and the more that we kind of normalize some of this stuff and show how faith has been very helpful in grounding and moving us forward is awesome. So that's what Jim Kincaid and I did one, and I'm looking for another person to go out and do that with. Try to get one a month is kind of my goal to start with. Maybe it's not going to happen for another 2 months, but just want to make sure that I give that a fair shot. But other than that, the watches, I got a bunch of flashlights I haven't finished. I have them sitting right here, and I'm gonna hold them up, because once I hold them up, you're gonna see what you know what's gonna happen. And these are all Soferns, which is a great company. It's the Sofern IF23s, plural, there's 2 of them, and IF24s. Let me get these lined up here, because they all pretty much look the same, but there's only one that matters to me. The other 3 I could throw against the wall right now and I wouldn't care at all about them. And there's very specific things about this. And I thought Sofern was going to come out with their latest IF24 and really kill it with some updates on there. And they didn't. They went this other route, and I'm just like, ugh. And the IF23s, I have my issues with that. I have another IF24 that I absolutely love. And but anyway, so flashlights, I've got a whole bunch of flashlight stuff coming up. And a couple of knives. I don't buy as many knives as I do flashlights and watches. Flashlights, I'm giving those away to people. It's like, hey, you need a flashlight?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're cool. But you get a flashlight that does a lot of things. Like I do a lot of traveling. One of my favorite, okay, so this is kind of let the cat out of the bag, but the IF24, the original, this is a charging bank. Also with the side light, you have the top light, you have different colors on here. I use this for filming, for videoing, for watches and stuff. But this is like a do-it-all flashlight, magnetic tail cap, so I can stick this on something that's significantly strong. Like this is, there are some magnetic tail caps that are not. But that kind of stuff with flashlights will be coming up as well.
Sure.
So, yeah, got a few things coming, and got to get going again. So.
No, I get that. Would you like to shout anybody out aside from our good buddy Jim Kincaid?
Jim Kincaid cracks me up all the time, and I love his reviews because they're so. As funny as they are, they're extremely insightful, extremely practical. Like he'll talk about things that I just haven't thought about, like the watch crotch. Mm-hmm. But you really like when he talks about it, it's like that actually makes sense.
Oh yeah. No, he's not just saying words to hear himself. No. He actually knows what he's talking about.
No, it's actually really cool. So Jim's one. I've actually been doing a lot of Christian faith stuff, and Alistair Begg, who's I think out of Cleveland, but he's originally from Scotland, and I love the Scottish accent. I've been hooked on his channel. He's a preacher, so not in the watch world or the firearms world, but the guy, when he explains things, it's just like, man, pretty cool. So, all right, that wraps it up. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paul. Stay on. I want to do the mic thing. I got to figure out.
Of course, yeah, we're gonna do some testing here.
Figure out this mic issue.
For anybody who might be watching in the VOD, the playback of this, let us know in the comments something that you might want to see in the future for more shows. Because Tim and I could pontificate about anything that we do or we work on, but sometimes with topics, it's harder for us to figure that out because we don't really know what people want to see. So if you have any ideas for things you'd like us to talk about, whether it's Tim and I or once we get Jim back in here, the 3 of us to cover, let us know in the comments down below.
Yeah, Jim is out in Texas. Brewing up some new things for us to talk about. Like I can't wait to hear what he has to say. It'll be fun. So thank you, everybody. Paul, thank you, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah, see ya.